All right. Well, welcome back to the Rice Report, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I am joined by just a kind of a legendary guest, somebody who's been in the defiant stage for the better part of well over a decade, been through a lot of things on the grind. You may not like what he has to say, and you may not like him, but he does speak the truth, and he does come out boldly and give statements when it's unpopular. And no one appreciates that more than I do. So I love having different opinions on here. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have many different opinions today. But I do love having good conversations with people who think differently, or at least are going outside of the constructed narrative. So welcome everybody onto the Rice Report today. Dustin Stockton. Dustin, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Well, as a contrarian, I have to start with like a disagreement. Everybody loves me, bro. Like, there's not a person you can find who does not love all of the awesome sauce I bring to everything.
Well, I'm one of them, man. I'm a huge fan. So let's hop into this stuff right now. So we're living through, you and I both tweet and talk about psychological operations. You've been in this a long time. I was a part-time Tea Party guy. That whole movement fizzled out, went into something new. What we got out of it was Marco Rubio, though. That was the default prize, and we'll see how that turns out. But at the end of the day, there have been movements. It didn't just start in 2020. Movements have been going all throughout the United States, trying to bring back the original revolutionary spirit of Americans, which is we don't need a big government. We don't need central control. We want to be free. And you've been at the forefront of that. Now we're in a space where we just have mockingbirds all over the place that'll just repeat whatever is popular to get clicks online. And any defiance of the current trend that we're seeing right now, we're considered, I guess the new gay term they've given us is, or given you, I don't really take a stance, but I'll take it with you, is woke right. Is that anybody who disagrees with Donald Trump is now the woke right? So let's get into that. Let's explain what this is. I mean, as far as I know, for the last, 8 years of my life, I've been preaching critical thinking, and everyone I talk to preaches critical thinking and speaking out against things you don't agree with, which is our God-given right, not a country-given right. And now we're in a situation where we literally have people saying, if you question what Donald Trump's doing, then you're in defiance of God. I completely disagree with this. I have always said, follow God's plan, not anyone else's plan, God's. I've seen some of the debates you've had on Twitter, and this stuff is getting out of hand here, guys.
Yeah, so I mean, the what's interesting is, if anything, today we've had some of that break. Like, we're right. To be honest, the Epstein stuff, people who were attacking me for being anti-MAGA, and for me it's easy because I've been with President Trump like at the top level since well before he came down the golden escalator. I believe that the Tea Party movement, like Donald Trump, is actually a result of our frustration.
Fair, yeah.
That the Tea Party movement, for all of our wins and all of our success, we didn't move the needle that much.
Yeah.
And so we recognized the need for a disruption agent. Somebody who just came in, and essentially we were going to vote and support whoever the establishment hated the most. And Donald Trump like fit that bill times 1,000. But over time, what's come to happen, and I understand the mindset. The part of the issue is Donald Trump, in order to get where he is, had to beat the Republican establishment and the Democrat establishment and the military industrial complex and the Clinton machine and the Reid machine and the Obama machine. And then he gets into office, and the entire deep state is weaponized to sabotage his agenda. Like a bunch of the people he appoints. I mean, when you're appointing thousands of people to the government, you don't know exactly. You have to rely on people.
Yeah, there's attrition with that, no matter what.
And he thought that by giving concessions to the Reince Priebus, Paul Ryan type part of the wing, that would bring them into the fold and they would be loyal. Unfortunately, this is politics and not business, and there is no loyalty at all. And so for a lot of people, myself largely included in this, we have built a kind of muscle memory to defend Donald Trump when he's being attacked.
Certainly.
Yeah. Right. Regardless of what it is. And it's
historically justified too. Like, history has justified that.
And it's played out well for us. Like, the number of times that I was like, man, I'm not sure. And then Donald Trump, like the Iran thing's a great example. I am vehemently anti-war.
The
I,
same.
and a lot of it comes from shame and embarrassment about my support of the Iraq war, in that
Sure.
I bought the nonsense, and I ended up right. I had lots of friends die over in that desert, and I will never repeat that. I have kids who are coming of age, like where they could end up serving in the military. I don't want to send them off to die in places that they have no business, that they have no beef, that it's just not our business. And so I was very outspoken that, like, I was very concerned about what was happening in Iran. But again, Donald Trump showed that, like, he was taking action. I still don't necessarily agree, like, that it was necessary, but at the same time, I trust him enough that, like, he walked us out of that, and we're not currently mired in the next forever war.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and so on a lot of this stuff, it's okay. But I also know that Donald Trump is influenced by what he hears from people,
Sure.
which is Donald Trump. And it's actually a real blessing, because we have somebody who actually will listen and then take action based on, like, whatever the best argument he's hearing at the time.
Like
And
any
so,
good populist leader would do.
right. And so all of these people are like, why are you questioning Donald Trump? Why don't you just shut up and support the policy? Well, on 100 issues, I've watched the policy get better as a result of us challenging it. And Donald Trump is not some soft internet influencer who's like, oh my God, you hate me because you disagreed with something I said one time. Like,
He listens.
and he's tough.
Yeah.
Right. He does not take it personally when you challenge, right, ideas or policies. He wants to hear both sides in order to get the best opinion possible, and come to the best decisions. And I respect and admire that. There are things though, man, like that you can't cover up for pedophiles.
You can't. You can't. Period.
Yeah.
Seeing, even going back to the Iran, right? Like, I still haven't. No one has actually seen the proof of any nuclear activity. No one has. These are estimates given by Israel, who claims that they have 100% access to the Iranian government intel. That is a captured nation on an intelligence level. So now you're not relying upon U.S. intel. You're relying upon Israeli intel to drop bombs on a foreign country. And now you're getting a peace prize for that. And by the way, bombing hasn't stopped. There is bombing still happening in Syria, Lebanon, even back in Palestine, while Netanyahu is sitting at the White House. And Yemen. Oh, Yemen hasn't stopped. That has never actually curtailed.
No.
And these things are still happening. So, you're right, Dustin. This is the role of a civilization, is to question leadership, that especially the media guys who make money doing this. We do this for free. The guys who make money doing this are not questioning anything, because their incentives aren't aligned with the truth. Their incentives are aligned with party lines. So
the shifting ground in media is also something that we really need to be cautious about right now. So
100%.
Because I've watched this happen over and over again. And there's this exciting moment when we have new technology that opens up us to compete with things that we could. I mean, the video quality, even of this stream right now, is above what you could do with a satellite truck 10 years ago.
That's right.
And so there's brand new competition. The establishment media, the old media, legacy media, whatever you want to call them, they have no credibility anymore, right? Like, and I don't care if it's Fox News or CNN or ABC or NBC or Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal. They have shredded their credibility to the point. And I think all of us kind of assume that's a good thing right out of the gates. Like,
Sure.
Awesome, we have new things. The problem is that now we're watching the subversion happen from like the people who want to shape, or as they call it, nudge public opinion, sway public opinion, or flat out mislead us. They've realized that pushing things out through the traditional media doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have a whole new pipeline of information warfare that comes up through people that like through the message boards and through truth seeking internet accounts. And it's it's almost more difficult now for us to be
Yeah.
able to root that out and root it out quickly. And so, I mean, for me, I pray twice a day, and I would say 90% plus of the time, the first thing I pray for is discernment,
Mhm.
because it's one of the things that God has promised us that if we ask for, he will give to us. And it's also in this world, it's probably the most important skill we can have,
Agreed.
because just figuring out anymore what's real and what's not real has become challenging, and it's only getting more challenging as as AI allows us to recreate things that were never actually real just from text prompts. I can't imagine where we're going to be 5 years from now. I can't imagine how difficult it's going to be for my kids to discern what's real and what's not real. And we're not doing anything to safeguard how we present this information and
Mhm.
to establish some kind of, you know, the fourth estate and the media is protected for a reason, but it doesn't matter if we voluntarily give it up.
Right.
And so I had this moment yesterday where I I understand that people don't want to protest anymore. Like after January
I
6th,
saw that tweet. Yeah.
nobody wants to come protest anymore.
It was an
And
effective op.
it incredibly effective. But we talk about the first, like preserving the First Amendment and the Constitution as being bedrock to us remaining free. It doesn't matter if we just volunteer to give it up because there's dangers and risk. And the really frustrating part for me is I don't doubt that we could still do it. I'm not sure that people are willing to like put themselves out there like that anymore. I
I
think that
agree.
we have allowed technology, and what's really happening here is that they've found ways digitally to get our brains to release chemicals that would be the response to doing things that we're supposed to do. And whether that's in relationships or whether it's our civic duties or whatever it is we're supposed to do, they found a way that they can give us the chemical release without actually having to do the action.
Correct.
It's like, oh, if I make a lot of noise on the interwebs, I'm doing my part. And our brains are like, oh, great job, good job. But we did not do the actual thing we were supposed to do.
We just
Right.
talked about it.
Yeah. And that we're approaching a point where people are going to have to decide. And they're going to have to, and none of this can come without pain, without risk. And I don't want to come across as completely black-pilled though, because
I don't believe in the word. I think the word is like conspiracy theorist or anti-Semite. Like just speak the truth. Whatever. We have to stop being concerned about what names we're being called, and discernment being the key. I put a tweet out the other day, and it was like, trust in God alone. Everyone else is lying to you, and that statement is true for everyone. None of us understand reality. Even those who are saying this is what's true, we don't know that. That's
we
that's
lie
that's
to
information
ourselves.
war.
Yeah. I mean, we all the time lie to ourselves for
Sure.
comfort, to right, like to prop ourselves up for confidence reasons. But where we're going, what I mean by black pill isn't like what people are calling me, which is one of the other things that I worry about are like, and I think one of the greatest psyops is this idea that there's nothing that can be done.
Of
The
course.
the, the problems are too big for us. Like, don't even try. You just end up badly for you.
It's the ultimate psyop.
When nothing could be further from the truth. And I think that we're in one of these, like, when I look at history, I think to like the founding of the Constitution, it really boils down to a battle between centralized control
Mhm.
and decentralization, and what you believe ultimately delivers better results. And we're in that battle again in the biggest possible way with AI. So right now we have the Silicon Valley tech bros who have a head start being like, oh my God, if you guys don't give us complete and total control and block the competition, China will be, we must win against China. And the only, except my whole life philosophy is based on the idea that more competition equals better results in the long run, and centralized control leads to stagnation. And so I don't, you're not ever going to convince me on AI that, oh, well, if we don't just give a handful of people everything they could probably, no, competition will force them. And that's why we end up beating China, who centralized, like who has centralized control and monetary. What we're doing with Bitcoin and what's happening in crypto also has that duality of technology,
Sure.
which is there is the potential for really terrible things that happen. Central bank digital currency tied to your social credit score, tied to your digital ID. I call it
Stablecoins too. Don't forget them. Same programmability.
I call it the unholy trinity of tyranny, which is like that, those three things. But at the same time, this is also an opportunity for us to decentralize so that I don't, if me and you want to do some business together, why do I need permission from Bank of America or Wells Fargo or BNBT? It doesn't make any sense. And so on one level, if we are engaged and we are smart and we avoid distractions, I think that's probably the biggest thing that I worry about, because I see us, it's like those little kid shows where there's the bouncy ball at the bottom of the screen. Like that's what we're like. We're like, all right, what are we talking about today? And it's not that they have to send out a memo anymore that like, okay, everybody, this is what we're talking about today. It's far more insidious because they reward us with those chemical hits, which is, like, it's funny because I kind of like went off the rails a little bit yesterday. Like that Epstein thing really bugs me because I've been on there.
We're going to get into that next. And we're going to wrap up with the importance of decentralization, because everyone talks about Bitcoin. That's not the glitch. The glitch in the matrix is the decentralization, proof of work, balancing out power, balancing out governance. But yes, let's get into Epstein, because you did go off on one yesterday, and I actually like, you got some people who are bashing you, and it's like, why? Do you not agree with the First Amendment? Like, I have people on here who I vehemently disagree with. We have great conversations. We just think differently, and that's okay. That's what makes a nation work. That's what makes a free country work, is you're totally allowed to think differently and feel any way you like. So yeah, let's get into Epstein. Let's get into this. Is, I'll set the stage. So there's a press conference talking about the horrific flooding in Texas, where I am, and we actually know some people impacted by that, and our prayers absolutely need to go out to these families. But of course, you have her sister was there, and it's the Bush's kids, and like, this just desensitizes you to, this is horrific that children died and this flood occurred. And yeah, listen, I'll throw it out there too. I have no question that this is weather manipulation. Absolutely zero. I've had multiple weather experts on here, and I've gotten into it with a few of them that don't believe you can modify the weather. But the end of the day is a press conference was just given. I would play the video. I just don't have it on the computer right now. And Trump interrupted questioning of Pam Bondi to shut down the Epstein conversation. Listen, why are we still talking about this guy? He's dead. We found kiddie porn on his computer. He's dead. Let's move on. It is literally the same thing Hillary Clinton did during Benghazi. Why are we still talking about these guys that are dead? It's over with. So there's no difference between those two. And I love Trump. Like, I absolutely love Trump. But I don't love anyone as much as I love Jesus Christ, who taught us the way, the truth, and the life. And I don't feel like we're getting the truth, and it's coming from someone that people trust, and that bothers me quite a bit. Whether it's a 5D chess, which I'm so tired of hearing, I don't care what it is. Whatever excuse you give to this is an excuse that will damn your soul, period. So that'll set the stage. So that's one of the reasons you're upset. It got worse this morning. It didn't get better. We didn't get a, hey, we're going to keep looking into it. It was we're shutting it down. Stop talking about it.
Listen, I saw it coming, because this is not something new. It's part of a pattern of deception that we've gotten around this, which is we sent people in who were very, very, very clear. I mean, we could play video after video after video after video of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi talking about, oh, we're going to really, like, you can trust us. We're going to release the information. Even after they're in office, like, we have the information. We're just making sure that none of the victims are going to, right? Like, we're just making sure, like, what we can. Evidence? What are you talking about? It's like playoffs, like evidence. Now
Epstein. We still talking about Epstein?
Epstein.
Talking about practice?
It's wild to me. I cannot comprehend. And there is no, this is my problem with the trust the plan thing. There is no scenario where it's okay to like continue to cover for this.
100%. Yeah, gloves are off at this point on that.
I don't care what the consequences would be, who would have to go down, what its impact on the economy temporarily would be, as long as people are sexually abusing children in order to blackmail powerful people at the tops of corporations and governments. I really don't care what the other fallout is.
I don't care either. Yeah.
We can deal with that. What we can't deal with is not knowing. And so as I'm watching this all play out, it's funny because the first night the Axios story hits, and there was some, the memo didn't quite look,
it was
right.
Shady looking. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But they also gave us it's a miracle. The cameras that we've told you were broken and didn't record, actually turns out we got the video right here. Oh, it's great. Now, but a lot of people are like, oh, it's fake news, don't pay attention to it. And my answer at that first moment was, actually, this fits an overall pattern of deception. And so the fact that I think it's an early version, right? Maybe it wasn't the final draft of whatever memo they were preparing, doesn't really matter. When we have the videos and it matches like the ground that they've been setting up for us coming in. And then, of course, then we get confirmation that, like, during the press conference yesterday, we're like, oh yeah, no, like, it's real. And how dare you, like, continue to ask about it. I thought it was interesting that Caroline Levitt took her cross off for the first time. Right. Which, I mean, I get it. Like, I feel for somebody in her position who has to go and, like, toe the company line, say what she's got to say. But
I don't. I'm done feeling sorry for people who are just doing their job. I'm just done with it. It's how many decades do we have to go through this?
I don't think she has any real power to influence the decision. It's just, right. Like, I guess you could resign instead of taking your cross off. That,
sure.
I think God would approve of that message.
I do too.
But the problem is, even the, like, jankiness of the memo has led people to continue this whole Q thing, like the whole trust the plan. And I find it really, of all the things I'm frustrated by, Q has to be, like, towards the top of the list, because I fell for that really bad originally. Like, when that first started coming out, I had been working with Bannon at Breitbart, and I'd been going through the Podesta emails, and then I fell down the rabbit hole that leads you to James Alefantis and Ping Pong and John Legend and Chrissy Teigen and Tom Hanks and all of the really creepy stuff that is undeniable, that is also the most stomach churning stuff you can find anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's undeniable that sometimes Trump and Dan Scavino confirm that they're aware of what's happening on the Q boards.
Sure.
I won't argue with that. But over time, we started to demand that things happen. If there are satanic pedophiles running around abusing children and bragging about it in front of our faces, that demands public action. And we never got it. And I find it really convenient that Q kind of went away. And now here we are, where we're being asked to swallow a bunch of, like, inaction and nonsense. And all of a sudden, here's the Q thing, which allows for an infinite number of potential possibilities that
Yes.
you're just not smart enough to see.
Yeah, we're always stupid. Here's my stance on that. So I think it's real to expose the bad things in life. Like that's an obvious result. Most people had no idea how corrupt things were. I've said this from day one. I'll say it till the very beginning. I trust God's plan. Boards were hacked, things were changed, narratives changed. You have the 2020 come out. I'll never speak anything bad about it because it's not over. Like 25 years from now, I'll sit back and say that was real or that was fake. But I'm certainly not going to dedicate my life to game theory, making excuses for bad decisions for grown men. Like I'm just not going to do that. And I don't think here I'll lose any. Like listen, you don't want to follow anymore. It's fantastic. I've never posted a Q post in my life. Maybe a couple because they were interesting to me, and they are interesting. It is a super interesting game to play. Like, oh, he said that. Now it would be pretty. And I say this all the time. How easy it would be to manipulate people. All you have to do is use the number 17 in every article. That's it. But again, I'm not bashing that. Like, I don't know if that's real or not because only time will tell. Right now, it's not playing out great. And that's, that my biggest issue is here's this system created for critical thinking that has completely eliminated critical thinking. So it's just the danger of not having God in your life and going from one matrix to another. Like that is really the premise. And it's leading into other things, investments, all these things are, the boards. Yeah, but again, I'm not going to speak poorly of it or make fun of anybody because we were all there, and you should go there. Like you should go there to understand the corruption of the world, the game theory behind what's happening behind closed doors. Done. I've been behind closed, like you. I've been behind closed doors. That's not how things happen.
Right.
That's just not how they happen.
I like that it challenges people to think.
Absolutely. Love it.
Except when it pushes people to reject what's obviously right in front of them.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, well, this is just so that I'm going to excuse this because it's actually part of some like bigger, crazier thing that no one could possibly understand. That's where I get like to a level of just absolute frustration. And it's the same with like the big, beautiful bill. So, right. For me, I come up in the Tea Party movement. I play a major leadership role in one of the most historic wins for Republicans of all time in the 2010 election, where we win 87 seats. And 60 plus of those members are Tea Party. And yet we didn't really shrink this. Like we still weren't able to really accomplish.
Nothing was accomplished.
Was it a little better than nothing?
Yes.
Little bit, right?
But if you looked at your list of priorities,
yeah,
3% achieved. The one place it was achieved was getting people into office. That was the secret.
And what they did to us was a constantly moving the goalpost of what was like, oh my God, thank you guys. We have control of the House, but we can't do anything until we control the Senate. All right, rally the troops. Oh, we hand you the United States. Well, I mean, we could pass those laws, but Obama's not going to sign them, so we're just going to keep doing what we're going to do. Like, no, send the new legislation to Obama, and then like fight. No, we got to get a supermajority.
Yep,
and control the House and control the White House. Deliver the White House close to a supermajority. Oh, well, we got to focus on these things first, or we won't keep the majorities. And then, of course, like you don't maintain it because all of us who are putting the money, time, energy, effort to helping you win, you've moved the goalpost on us for 7 straight years. And now we're not going to be nearly as passionate, or a lot of us are burnt out or moved on or done other things. And I'm watching it play over again, and I'm so frustrated. And for me, when we deposed Kevin McCarthy, so Kevin McCarthy had made very specific agreements with us.
Yes.
About regular order spending, about foreign fund. We had a specific list on paper that he had agreed to and put his name to that he didn't do. And finally, with Matt Gaetz, we said, you know what? You made an agreement, and this time we did something different, right? Instead of us just saying, you agree to do this and we will support you, we said, we're going to add a mechanism of enforcement.
Mhm.
And that mechanism of enforcement is what do we call it? The removal of the speaker, the motion to vacate the chair. And listen, you are 9 months overdue you have delivered 0 of your commitments. Motion to vacate the chair. Matt Gaetz does it. We support him. We oust Kevin McCarthy. And a battle ensues over who we're going to get. And we're also not these people who are not pragmatic. We understand that you have
Of
to get
course.
enough votes and do the whole deal. And I'll never forget that week, we had something like 18 members of Congress come into the spaces and tell us what was going on, including Mike Johnson. And he could not figure out how to get on stage and unmic. I'll never forget, because it was a space we had
on a Twitter space, guys. This is a 2-button process.
Yeah, we had Byron Donalds and Lauren Boebert and Ronnie Jackson, and like, we're in the space with us, and they're like, "Oh, look, Mike Johnson's here. You guys got to meet this guy. He's awesome." And he couldn't figure out how to get on stage and unmute. I should have known at that point, but all of our people are like, "Oh, Mike's great," right? But again, I don't trust anybody anymore. So
I mean, you don't trust a guy who confesses on public TV that he and his son monitor each other's porn?
that wow.
I didn't say it. Mike Johnson did.
I didn't really know that at the time.
Yeah,
Right?
none of us did.
Makes more sense now. But again, we get written commitments from them. And it's the same stuff. Regular order spending. These multi-trillion-dollar omnibus spending bills are only designed to allow for bad things to get through.
Yep.
And we have a constitutional process of how the House is supposed to budget and spend money. And we've only done it once in the last 30 years, which is insane when people think about it. And the other big things were no more funding. Like, we're not going to continue to spend money in Ukraine, and we're going to cut back on foreign meddling spending. And we spent 2 weeks. I convinced everybody, like, we are burning down phone lines. We are winning the war to get Mike Johnson elected as speaker and win. And the first words out of his mouth after he wins is, "What are you going to do now?" "We're going to send money to Israel and Ukraine."
Yep.
You literally put on your name on paper that was the opposite of what you're going to do. All of your voting record beforehand said, right, you immediate betrayal. And that was the breaking point for me with all, like, I'm not playing this game with Republicans anymore. Like,
No.
I get that, like, I started out being very naive. I let you move the goalposts. Like, "Oh, okay, well, I guess it's up to me to go win the Senate for you guys. Oh, okay, we'll get you right. Well, I guess you guys have to have all 3 to get anything done. Oh, okay, like, okay, now I'm pissed. We're going to add enforcement mechanisms. Then we're going to actually use the enforcement mechanisms, and we still end up with the same nonsense over and over again."
Yep.
And I guess if there's a place that it's been frustrating for me in the recent days, is with that experience, going back, 15 years that I've been leading these activist small government revolts inside the government, to watch people make the same arguments over and over again.
Yep.
Which is,
so it's a broken record.
We just have to take over the party from the inside and elect more people. Are you going to do better than winning 87 seats in a single election cycle? And then how are you going to enforce when those people get there that they sit? Because of those 67 people that we sent as Tea Party people to Congress, I would say less than 8 actually lived up to the ideals that got them elected. Less than 8.
What percentage of them are now accepting money from AIPAC?
100%.
100%.
Nope. In fairness, Thomas Massey is not taking AIPAC money.
He doesn't take money from AIPAC. He does take money from other Zionist groups not named AIPAC.
And big Jewish donors. But
that's 100% correct. But you can't say that, though. Don't say that, Dustin, because you're an anti-Semite. You're an anti-Semite.
I got in big trouble in one of the one of the more aggressive anti-Israel groups yesterday, because I was like, "You guys, You guys know that there's a good chance that the reason Thomas Massey is like being purposely picked out is like maybe he's the next controlled opposition guy.
Yep. Yep.
And
I
they're
mean,
like,
name one that
no,
isn't.
no, like it can't be that. I'm like, if you don't understand, like no one gets elevated into the spotlight who isn't at some level playing the game for, you know,
That
the
is the game.
the
That
master
is
plan.
the game. Yeah. Yeah. And when you say this to people, they get like we just spent. I mean, biblically, every nation that God has condemned and cursed and crushed throughout history has fallen into idolatry. And you could doubt the Bible all you'd like. You can historically prove it 6 ways to Sunday. And idolatry is the downfall of a nation. We used to have like think of I just had a conversation with a former CIA guy about this. We were laughing about the fact that like how come Doge didn't talk about how much money we spend on investigations that go nowhere. The one that I do remember that went somewhere was the Major League Baseball steroid scandal. And I just got done talking to Mike about this. We spent like $59 million of US taxpayer money to crush the spirits of little kids who look up to a baseball player. So we used to have athletic idols, and then we went into celebrity idols, and now we're in the era of political idols. There's one idol. He came and died for our sins. It's just that simple. Everyone else is a flawed human being that more than likely is being paid by APAC. I mean, that's the honest truth behind it. So the more seriously people take, I think history is proving one thing. The more faith you put on someone that you trust, who you've never met, you've never spent a night with, you've never had a dinner with, and like you and I've been to Mar-a-Lago, you've been to we've met a lot of these people. And they're nice people. They're fine people. I still don't trust them. And I have no problem telling them right to their face that I don't trust them because their actions don't align with their words. And the more that we put faith in anyone in Washington, D.C., who says, I'm going to be the differentiator, I'm the one who's different, I'm not taking money from them, the more you start to realize that, first of all, a president can't do anything without the House. You can't do anything without the Senate, without the House. And until that is all completely vaporized at some point, real change is going to be real hard to implement. Small wins will be easy, but big wins will always be difficult. And that's just the nature of politics. So stop putting your faith in these people, all of them. It doesn't matter who it is. Put your faith in your neighbor, in God, your family, and your neighbor, just like the Bible tells you. Nowhere in the Bible does Jesus say, put your faith in a senator in the United States. Like, it just doesn't say that anywhere.
Well, so I also, it's not that many of these people aren't good people.
Sure, some of them are really, really good people.
The system is specifically designed to protect the corruption inside of it at this point. Like the corruption is so deep and ingrained that in order for you to get to a place that you can change even little things, you've had to compromise and give up your ability to go after any of the big ticket corruption items. You have to go along, you have to play the game. And there has to be a level of pragmatism to get important things done. And I know lots of members of Congress. I know lots of activists who have dedicated their time because they're passionate about one issue, who have accepted, like, if I want to make a difference on this thing I'm really passionate about, maybe I have to look the other way on defense contracting stuff, or I have to gain the support of energy or build a coalition through this stuff. And I've become convinced, I don't believe it's not fixable, but
of course it's fixable.
Well, it's the biggest lift we'll ever do politically. But
my favorite quote in the world is, only those who can see the invisible can achieve the impossible. You have to start seeing the invisible, because the impossible is always achievable. It just takes a massive movement of human cooperation and achievement. That's what it takes.
I also, there is a hunger for somebody who will talk about things in a real way. I think because of what we talked about earlier with just how fake everything is and how like people just like kind of do, authenticity is going to be worth, like, authenticity is the next Bitcoin. Right? Like, yeah.
I thought that was unvaccinated sperm.
Yeah. Well, that too.
That too.
Right. Authenticity is going to be worth its weight in gold. And so I think people are hungry for it, but we have to go big. So I've been saying that I was going to wait until after the midterms because I am loyal to President Trump. I've
Same
been
here.
through these
Yeah.
battles. I want him to be able to
Who
implement.
else do we have? Who else?
And who's done better for us than he has? Nobody.
Agreed.
Right? Even with all the failures, right? Just because I'm pissed about the Epstein thing doesn't mean that I don't recognize the sacrifices that Donald Trump has made on the behalf of all of us and love him
100%.
for it, right? Like deeply love him and his family for the sacrifice that they've made. Now, I have kids. Guess what? When I scold them, it's out of love.
Yep.
Right? When I discipline them, it's out of love. If I didn't love them, I would let them do whatever they wanted without me ever saying anything about it. It's obvious to me. So I haven't wanted to disrupt. I don't know, like people's appetite has changed just even in the last 24 hours, though, that I think we should start doing it. And this comes up to Elon and the America Party, too. Again, somebody else who has sacrificed in order to move the agenda for us. Now, I don't think that all of those sacrifices, like buying X, like clearly
selfish altruism is not a sacrifice.
Right. Clearly, buying X was not about free speech. It was about buying the largest data set of all time of human interaction and thought that like exists in the planet and using that for training data on AI. So like, I'll give him credit for some of the stuff that a lot of people give him credit for. But I generally think that he's trying to move, like he's not as bad as Mark Zuckerberg, I guess I would say, as far as like
horrible comparison, Dustin.
yeah, I guess he's not as bad as as Epstein. So that's he's got that going for him.
He's still alive. Let's pursue him.
But we need to full flush. And it's not without precedent. And I think that the messaging is actually simple enough that people could get to understand. Don't vote for incumbents because anybody who is there is complicit in the system, right? And we don't even have to get into intent or the morality of it. We can look at the results over the last 3 generations. And say that the best we can say for anybody who's been there is that they weren't effective enough to stop out of control, spiraling, corrupt government and kickbacks and spending schemes. And it's also not without precedent. We've had, there's been several times where we have almost completely removed everybody from Congress and replaced them with other people. And I think we need to get to that place very quickly. It would take 6 years to do it because of the cycle of the Senate. And I think we just need to start a no incumbent movement and fire them all. And that the hard part for people is going to be, it's like, you probably know and like your congressman, right? If he's been there a while, he's got constituent services, maybe signed the letter for your son, like the recommendation letter to get into the Naval Academy or into West Point, or for your cousin, right? You're going to have to make a commitment to sacrifice even people that you think are better than the alternative. And I think
if voting even solves this problem, right? Like that's another serious topic. I'm not convinced that, like before you can flush, you've got to reconstruct, and you've got to reconstruct and remove all the things that are corrupting the engine. PAC money, dark money, corporate money. You got to think about it this way. Your average congressman comes into office. They were like a lawyer. They're all lawyers, right? So they were like a mid-tier partner somewhere, probably making $300,000 a year, living on $400,000 a year, don't really have assets. They leave after 8 years or 12 years in Congress, and they're multimillionaires. That's coming from somewhere. That's not just appearing, like they have to disclose they weren't holding Bitcoin from like 12 cents. They were getting money from somewhere.
Right.
And until you remove that political dollar influence which is now accepted, Dustin, that's the crazy part. I remember, what is that? Citizens United? Citizens United needs to go like immediately. That is one thing. No one ever talks about Citizens United. No one talks about the interference of corporate money. We live in an oligarchy. If you think any of these politicians are in control of any of their decisions, you have completely missed the ball. And I mean any of them. Any. It doesn't care who your favorite senator on the back of a baseball card is. It doesn't. They're all influenced by overarching capital from an oligarchy system that runs the nation. Look at the bifurcation of small business and large business. It is the biggest wealth diversion in our economy ever. And you brought up flushing incumbents. Like 6 weeks ago, I was on a Twitter space and somebody said, what are your thoughts for the midterms? The Republicans are going to cruise. And I go, these are going to be the most violent midterms you've ever seen, just from what I'm seeing right now. And it's getting worse or better, whatever we want to see it. But yeah, I think people are going to be tired of status quo. And before we can make an impact, you got to get rid of voting machines. I mean, all this stuff from 2020, it's still there. Nothing has changed. Zero has changed. There are zero laws on the docket to change them either. That's the real issue.
Yeah, so I will say we have better tech that allows us to monitor things. There is always a risk cost associated with cheats that get too big. And I think 2020, they went way over the line, which is why they had to go to the extremes that they did to shut it down with the January 6th op and like really making it criminal to be an election denier, which is crazy. There's a lot of infrastructure that would have to be built. The problem though is people don't have the appetite to do real things.
Yep.
And so
or the money.
We have to organize them. I've been telling people for probably 6 or 7 years, right? Like, go be a precinct committeeman in your Republican Party, not because you're going to do anything, but because I want you to see firsthand how awful it is from top to bottom, right? Like, no, I always tell them, like, you don't have to go for more than a couple meetings, right? But you need to go and look at it firsthand, be like, oh, that's what we're doing. And people yell at me. My friends yell at me all the time. So like, you guys just have to stick it out and fight harder and like take it over. It's why are all these party seats not being filled? Maybe it's the party, right? Maybe the whole structure, regular people go and they say, I'm not going to be able to do anything effective. Like, this is not an effective use of my time in any way. So I'm not going to continue down this path. It doesn't make any sense. And that's why I think people should go, because you have to see how bad it is.
Agreed.
But we can organize. And so I'm going to just give some like unadulterated, wild copium optimism for everybody. Because
hopium me up, man. Inject the hopium.
If there was ever a time that we need to do it, it's now. So AI allows us to process large data sets in a way that were previously impossible because it went past our capabilities with human intellect. That power means that government will no longer be able to hide things by overcomplicating it, because we have the systems in our hands now that we can take the information and all of the fancy stuff you do, all of the shell corporations and all of the way, that's all going away. And it's retroactive, which is we're going to be able, and several of us have been building these systems out for 4 or 5 years, to go back and retroactively say, well, we have the Panama Papers, right? We have the leak of all of this banking data in the Cayman Islands. What would happen if we take that data, we match it to the legislation at the time, and then look for conflicts of interest between who was voting for the laws, where it came into the subcommittees, and then how much money ended up in the spouse's bank account or the brother's bank account. We're going to be able to do a lot of that retroactively in a way that I think gives us a short window of opportunity to remove a lot of people very, very quickly. And if we capitalize on that moment, I think that we could get and see a wave of people coming into the government that could cause the kind of wholesale disruption that people would be forced to accept and to vote different ways because of what they just saw as far as corruption. We have to make examples out of people.
Yeah,
I agree. We have to put a lot of people away. But the left has given us a playbook. I mean, I've watched George Soros invest in district attorneys.
Don't give credit to the left. Give credit where it's due. Saul Alinsky gave us a playbook.
right? But they invested in district attorneys and attorney generals.
Yep.
Listen, I can go help us win and win some attorney generals races. It's certainly go help win some district attorney races. I mean, you're not talking about winning very many votes for that
Yeah.
stuff.
A few
And
thousand here and there.
and they gave us the precedent that you go after people for all, like when the SDNY and the Manhattan district attorney came after me for building the wall. We never touched New York. We never fundraised there. I mean, I guess technically because we did fundraising from everywhere, but
Sure.
it's like 40th on our list of like where money came in from New York. And yet they claimed jurisdiction and they came after us. We can do that with all of this if we get organized and we get some of the local and state legal apparatus behind us. And we show those people what the tools that are available in order for them to start breaking some of these criminal cartels that operate through the government. So I do think that there's going to be a window of opportunity for us if we're
Short window.
organized to like really go after and wholesale change a bunch of things. But it's going to get ugly. And there's going to be pain, there's going to be sacrifice, and people are going to have to accept it and do it. But I still believe that there is fighting spirit, which is maybe we don't see it as much as we want online, but the American people, when I travel, it always restores my faith in the grittiness, tenacity, and toughness of the American people. When I get offline and I go shake people's hands and I meet farmers and factory workers and people who are building stuff, I'm always reminded, like, wow, the people who are online all the time aren't doing all the awesome stuff.
They're not doing anything.
Right. It's important to remember that sometimes.
Yeah. And the goodness behind the American people. That's the other thing. Like every town I go to, it's just like, man, we have some really good people here. Now we're being flooded. Let's talk about the big, beautiful bill. Let's get in the big, beautiful bill. I want to get your take on this because, I saw Carolyn Levitt, this whole talk of amnesty. This isn't talk. This isn't conjecture. Like Trump has come out and said, we're going to keep the field workers and the hotel workers. Well, that serves his buddies in big agra, and that serves, him in hotels. You could look at it from that perspective. You could look at it from the perspective of, we don't have enough people willing to do that job. I don't think that's the truth, man. I think we have plenty of people willing to do that job. They just don't know how to find that job, number one. But, she came out today and said, Donald Trump has said, no amnesty. That's not true either. The big, beautiful bill restricts deportations to 1 million deportations per year. That's less than 20% of who came in the country in the last 4 years. Guess what that is, Dustin? That is amnesty by default. That is a political ploy to gain favor, to say no amnesty, but you're still getting amnesty because you're not being deported.
It's worse than amnesty.
It's worse than amnesty.
Right. The thing about amnesty, I am wholly and totally opposed, but it would force them to come into the system, which means that they won't be able to undercut the labor wages for low-skilled workers.
Exactly.
And right. So and this is why we've existed on immigration in this mid-zone, which is the Chamber of Commerce Republicans want cheap labor. They don't want to have to pay 401ks and benefits and health insurance, right? Like all of the stuff that comes with hiring somebody above board. Listen, we just want to pay you $5 an hour and let you roll.
Yeah.
And and the Democrats just want chaos and voters and all of the crazy stuff that they want. So we've been in this standstill. Obama was deporting people at a faster rate than Donald Trump has been in a second.
That's a fact. Yep.
Just pure numbers. And it's
early. So it's early on, right? I'm not going to hold that against Trump. It's 7 months in. Like,
and they just got, and the bill does give them funding to beef up in a way that it would be necessary to really ramp up the deportations, which is desperately needed for us. Like you can't have a social safety net and open borders.
Correct.
Like those things cannot exist and you remain economically viable. It's not a possibility. So my little brother is a coding computer prodigy. And he ended up like rewriting the automation code for farms. Like he went in, there was a farm that was having a problem, and he's like, well, instead of like fixing it, like put it bad, I'm just going to rewrite the base level code. And now he runs one of the largest farm conglomerates in the country as their CEO.
And by the way, there's no protection for the American family farmer right now who is under assault from corporations for acquisition. This is a topic almost no one covers. I cover it here, we cover it online. Our farms are under attack, and there's nothing in that bill that protects them. Nothing.
And they're forced to conglomerate.
Yes.
Like, right. Like if you are a small farm, in order to be able to meet the regulatory requirements, you're forced to like basically give up, or they just start piecing you off bit by bit by bit. It's terrifying. But he has a large workforce that aren't illegals who come in. I can't remember exactly what the designation is, but there are lots of programs for like temporary agricultural workers to come in, work their shift, and then go back. And what he told me is, we've been doing that for 6 or 7 years anyway, because why would we get afoul of the law and risk that as somebody who's not the big players who are gobbling up everything? It's a weakness for us. And so what I don't understand is that why it's even necessary. There's more than enough temporary work visas for anybody that any of these farms need.
Absolutely.
And most of the good ones are already doing it. And so when I hear these things about, oh, well, we're going to leave hotel workers and farm workers alone, to me, what I hear in that is the excuse for why you're going to do something like amnesty.
Yes.
And we're going to get one of these gang of 13 immigration bills that honestly Reagan did and was a complete and total disaster for us and continued the flow of everything. And so what my biggest takes with the big beautiful bill is, I hate even saying that, is that on all of these issues, what I'm saying is the power establishment getting exactly what they want.
Yeah.
So if you are established power in AI,
you're good.
We had to strip out, and I can't even believe that we had to put effort and money into fighting this, that states can't regulate AI on their own
for a decade.
That we're going to put a moratorium on the most groundbreaking, important technology that we've dealt with at least since the internet, maybe probably long before that. And we're not going to give states a say. I mean, I don't believe it's constitutional. Like anyway, I believe that the states could continue to pass laws and enforce them, and there's not really anything.
But thankfully, that was removed. But you're right. Why did we? They spent hours debating it.
Yeah. Well, and why did I have to spend money to send lobbyists and to send activists? Why did I have to put any effort into like stomping that out?
Right.
And the compromise still picks winners and losers in the AI space.
Oh, sure. There's surveillance at the border, biometric scanning on public transportation. That's all in the bill. Like it is a big brother bill. That is the BBB.
Who gets access to the training data? And this is the thing that people don't get. The AI, right? The technology is already vastly farther than two things: the energy that's available to run it.
Yep.
And the data that they're able to get their hands on and organize and make sense of. And there are a couple of companies that are getting access, right? And it's Sam Altman's OpenAI, which is, I would go to prison if I started a nonprofit, I took a bunch of money in, and I said, actually, we're on to something really valuable here. Why don't we just say, actually, I am going to take money now?
Yeah.
I would go to prison. Like I would go to prison over that. And yet
corporate fraud.
And yet he's being given access to the most valuable thing that the government's sitting on, which is the data that can be used for training data, and without any guardrails. So I'm not an AI doomer, David Sachs. I'm gonna give him a nuggie when I see him, by the way, next time. Like, I really am. I'm gonna give him a noogie for like calling us all AI doomers.
I'll
And it's
repeat the line I
deserving
use
to
all the
be
time.
mad, but it is what it is.
AI
But
is a tool. In the wrong hands, it's a murder weapon. In the right hands, it builds beautiful things. You're placing it in the Sam Altman is the wrong hands.
dangerous.
Period. This guy created WorldCoin, went around the world getting biometric eye scans for $20 in an altcoin worth nothing. This is not a good human being. I won't even get into the genetic background, and the family lineage, but not a good guy, and he has no guardrails on the data sets being given to him by the government for free to use for training. Period. That's in the bill.
And the thing is, it's not just him, right? Or
Of course
politics.
not.
And listen, I've known Peter Thiel for a long time too. I don't have issues with him. I mean, I do have issues, but like,
Yeah, please
it,
have issues with Peter Thiel.
it's not, however, that I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't want American AI to succeed, but there are guardrails. And I'll give you an example because I think this is something that people need to start talking about wholesale, which is we used to do things that put firewalls between things that, if mixed, create big problems for us. And the most famous being Glass-Steagall regulations that divided investment banks and depositor banks so that Wall Street could not gamble with grandma's, savings account. It's pretty simple. You put right. These things are both called banks, but one is gambling, and one is like for you to be able to like have you and keep your money safe. Those things should not be mixed together. We got rid of that, and then we had problem, right? Then we got held hostage and ended up bailing out the banks. So with AI, I want the efficiency that AI can give us. I mean, I talked about here how I think we can weed out corruption. I think it can even the playing field. I think lawyers are screwed, which I love. Right? Like I think lawyers might be the first class of people who get replaced by AI. And like,
I think
how
so too.
awesome, how awesome is that? Like,
Yep.
boom. And sorry to like the 2 or 3 lawyers who work for me full time and like take care of me and stuff. But like, yeah, you guys will be okay. We'll get you into this shit court. It'll be fun. So it's actually what I've done with him, which is funny. But with AI, we need to put firewalls between different data sets. And so there should not be a single LLM that is given access to our private health records and our military records and the Social Security database and the Energy Department's database about energy usage and the Department of Transportation's database about like cars and travel. And it's not that we don't want some AI work, it's that one single LLM doesn't get to compile all of that data in a single place and then put together comprehensive profiles on all of us. That alone would give us access to a lot of the benefits and protect us from some of the worst like dystopian authoritarianism that could come as a result.
Which seems more likely day by day, like that. If you're paying attention, the dystopia actually, if you're really paying attention, adding in biometric scanners on public transportation, that's in the bill. And this is not fantasy land. This isn't conspiracy theory. Whether it happens or not is foregone conclusion, in my opinion. If they're allowed to do it, they're going to do it. But it's still dystopian. There's no privacy. It doesn't exist.
And so we're not having those conversations that say we're arguing about stuff that has almost no relative impact on our lives when we're going through this transition. Where
we're celebrating USAID is dead. That's the narrative. Like, guys, it's like 1,100 pages, or they chopped it down to 980 something. It's 1,000 pages. Yes, USAID is gone, but let's look at government history. They're going to change it from USAID to USDIA, and no one's going to know the difference. That's just how the government rolls. That spending has not stopped. In fact, we just authorized more weapons to Ukraine and more money to Israel yesterday. So, where's the victory? I hate the term doomer. It's the gayest term. Like, black pill is actually cooler than that. If you want to call somebody something, like doomer is just stupid. But it's just a realist. Like, the good parts, right? The good parts, the best part of the big, beautiful bill is the fact that the original tax cuts that Trump gave us in his first term are still in place. That would have cost us $4 trillion as taxpayers, which, by the way, you and I both know this. None of us should be paying tax. We literally slaughtered 600,000 Englishmen because they charge us 3% on our tea. And now we sit around and pay twice the amount that the slaves paid in Genesis to Pharaoh. and we don't complain about it at all. So, oh, it's no big deal. Vote for Massey, vote for, Cruz. No matter what, right? There's like 20. Speaking of, I won't even get into the 26 states that you can't protest Israel in. I won't get into that. We're not going to do that in this conversation.
Biggest threat to America.
Yeah, biggest threat to America. Well, Charlie Kirk told us the biggest threat to America is Islamic influence on the West. So I replied back. I'm like, oh, is that what the I in APAC stands for? Is Islam? So, I mean, we just live in complete idiocracy. And in the middle of this bill, there are great tax cuts for sure. We're going to, people thought I was crazy when I said Trump's going to print 15 to 20 trillion dollars. That's actually not a bad thing. Our debt system runs on debt. So printing money, actually, like you and I own Bitcoin, like print all the money you want, dude. We'll be great. But this does diminish our children's financial future in every possible way. And there's no way around that without a creative narrative. I mean, you're very financially minded. Where do you stand on the financial part of the big, beautiful, the surveillance part? If you're endorsing this, like signing over legal authority to a government, the loophole they use is the border. That's probably why the borders were wide open for 4 years, so that people would do anything to shut it down, including giving away surveillance, which, like you said, in Washington, D.C. involves a trade-off. We need it on the border. We don't need it in Kansas City on the local bus for the people who can't afford a car, who are taking the bus to use a biometric scanner. That's abuse of power.
I always warn people, like we may feel it's justified to roll out all of these surveillance and AI surveillance and the new playbook for stomping out protests because we don't like what's happening in LA. But I can tell you from firsthand experience, in a couple of years, if we got mad and let's say we held a protest to, stop satanic pedophiles from being protected, those you might not feel it's as justified when those new tools and tactics are used on you. Us. Yeah. And it's what always happens 100% of the time, which is it maybe starts with something you feel is justified, but eventually you'll look at it being used on somebody, and hopefully not you. You're like, wow, this is totally unfair and terrible.
You mean like now how they're authorizing churches to actually endorse political candidates and keep their tax exempt status? That is the most slippery slope of all time. We are in the middle of so many slippery slopes that, of course, the theorists are like, oh, this is what they're really doing. This is what's really happening behind the scenes. This is what's happening in front of your face, and you should probably deal with that. That's just my guess.
From a financial standpoint, I think it's very clear that the Trump administration has made the calculation that there is not enough austerity available. There's not enough places to cut to keep things going well without turning the money printer back on full steam and stepping on the gas and going all the way out. And I don't know that I think that we actually we went past the point of no return as far as debt and government spending like a long time ago.
Yeah, like 2014, 2013, it really turned on.
Like $30 trillion ago or so.
Yeah. Yeah, somewhere around there.
Right. Like it's a big number. And so I get that as a calculation. I do. The taxation thing, though, what people don't understand is when we do that, it's taxation. And it's the most regressive form of taxation, which is the money bomb and the money printing and the devaluation and of the spending ability of every dollar is the taxation. And so it's not 40% effective tax rate. It's 90%. It's 95%. It is so much that slavery is a kind word for it almost. Yeah. Right? Like we're way past indentured servitude and all the way into complete financial tyranny and have been for a long, long time. The question is how do we transition? Because we're on monetary policy. Bitcoin is the revolution.
Yep.
And I don't care if Satoshi was a CIA operation or not. If it was, it's the greatest screw up of all time, which would be kind of
horrifically bad move
right,
by the ranchers who control the cattle. Horrifically bad move.
right, like because it made people learn about monetary policy.
Yep.
And it's funny because like I even the craziest degenerate level meme coin trader knows that you cannot allow the mint authority to be open before you go buy your token.
Right.
Right. Like
Right.
even you have to go make sure that like they can't just keep printing, because otherwise like you're gonna lose all your money no matter what. You're almost gonna lose it anyway, like for sure anyway. But that means there's zero. That's the so at a minimum, people have elevated their understanding of what we're doing. And we are going to go through this transition period into stable coins. And again, it's going to boil down to that.
There's another give and take bill. Big time. Right? The Genius Act was designed to share treasury revenue with a stable coin holder. The bill goes on break for like 6 weeks. They come back and they make it illegal now. So basically what's going to happen is the banks are going to be the largest stablecoin providers. They're going to harness in 5% in treasury income every year. You're going to have a dollar that's always worth a dollar that's totally programmable. And of course, the banks will listen to whatever the government says because the banks tell the government what to say. That is a CBDC, backdoor CBDC with full approval from the cattle to get free grass.
Yep.
That is exactly what that is.
100%. And the most important word in that is programmable.
Yep.
Is that you don't spend it, we take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not how it's programmed currently. So for listeners out there, it has the capability of being completely programmed. Yep. Yes.
Well, and of course they're not going to roll it out as like being pre-programmed.
Yeah.
Right. They just have to allow the call function to be available, like inside the contract somewhere, to add it. And that is where the real battlefield is going to be, which is like, this could be the kind of positive monetary revolution that allows for like that plus AI plus robotics, like could allow for this renaissance period that people are able to, experiment and build in community and efficiency and art that would be really awesome time to be alive. Or we're going to be under the thumb of some maniacal, schizophrenic, paranoid psychopaths who want to control every aspect, because if they can't see everything that's happening, well, anything could happen.
Right. The constant fear. And this actually leads right into where I wanted to go in the conversation, completely unplanned. The actual innovation of Bitcoin, because the coin itself is just like every other coin. Okay. It's a digital value system. The real innovation of Bitcoin is proof of work decentralization. Proof of work decentralization, for those of you who don't realize this, most of the time, like you have like 10 bank servers across the United States that control all of your bank accounts. Those are controlled by corporations that are fully centralized. Bitcoin has 22,000 as of this morning, 22,000 independent governance systems called nodes that make sure that the system runs effectively and there's no counterfeit. And then you have literally hundreds of millions of independent miners all around the world that are keeping the system secure, balanced, and truly on par with protocol rules. It is rules without rulers, and those rules can't be broken. There is not a single person in the world who can break them. This has also led to, I've had climate people on here talking about this. For 15 years, all we've heard is Bitcoin mining is going to destroy the universe. Bitcoin mining has created the energy efficiency required for AI to be a real thing. 61% of the energy comes from renewable energies. You're talking about flare gas burned into the environment, creating the CO2 that's going to kill us all. That is being captured by these operations to be able to do it. We are getting energy from volcanoes, from garbage dumps, energy coming from all over the place, off grid. And the reason I'm in that space is because off grid energy, I think, is the last bastion of digital freedom. And if the proof of work energy system is not used in AI, Bitcoin will be irrelevant. It will be the money of AI. It will transact. It doesn't need a bank account. But Bitcoin is by itself the revolution, not because of the asset, but because of the decentralized proof of work network that every government in the world hates because it takes their power away from decision making. Do you disagree with that at all?
None. The one of my favorite things has been getting to like work with a bunch of the Bitcoin miners, and also watching not just crazy that when all of a sudden you add a significant financial element that people find all kinds of creative ways to extract and get that like more energy, but it's also the efficient use of the energy. So in
balancing
Texas,
load balance.
yeah, which is right, taking Bitcoin miners will happily take any excess energy and then give it back when there's surges and the necessity to give it back to the grid is very, it's that kind of efficiency that changes everything. And it's exactly what you're saying. This is the biggest part to me. Like the reason of the revolution is the immutability of the rules. The non-bending and the durability of the system that allows for equal application, right? And so to me, what the ideals that get like that I love so much about America, I believe, has led to the greatest advance in the human condition by far of all time, which is the laws that we set out in the Constitution can be reinforced by these systems. That there has to be base level structures that allow for immutability and equal application. When you add those things, it's game over. And then obviously on energy, we are nowhere close to have the technology is so far past our energy and data capacities right now that I don't think people really appreciate like how wild that is. That if we had the energy available, what you would be seeing in AI and robotics would be beyond most people's wildest imaginations. And
China's 2.5x beyond us just in energy. In energy capabilities, China has 2.5 times the amount of energy per year than we do. Constantly. And all we hear about is how China's failing and it's a failing state. And I mean, it's just so much propaganda behind it. You're talking about 10,000 versus 4,000 in, I think, terawatts. So, I mean, the energy imbalance, and you bring up a good point. I'm an off-grid guy, so I talk with the off-grid. The on-grid, the PPA guys who are working with power grids, congratulations to all of you in Texas, me being included. There's a reason we haven't had a blackout during these storms for the last 4 years. That's because we are the largest Bitcoin miner in the nation. Yep. Our energy grid runs flawlessly. 70-year-old grid runs flawlessly because miners balance the load. That is an important, I always, it makes me laugh when people are like, Bitcoin has no utility. I'm like, oh, balancing energy has no utility. Capturing energy has no utility. Proof of work has no utility. That can't be infiltrated by there's no government trade-off in Bitcoin. There's no, you want to pass a bill, you need consensus and it's free. No one gets paid. No one gets corrupted. And we have issues like don't get it twisted. Like centralization through pools is an issue. I hate Bitcoiners who don't acknowledge that. But you and I are very much aligned. Like if we don't talk about things, they don't change. If we talk about things and then do things to change it, they change. It's just like, it's not really a hard composition to understand in your head. If you expose things, like I love Ephesians 5:11. It's my favorite scripture in all the Bible. Do not partake in the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. If you don't take that step first and then take action on what you've discovered, nothing will change. And Bitcoin by itself, you're talking about like a mining operation. These are $25 to $50 million minimum. Some of them are in the hundreds of millions. And I personally think that Trump knows that the corruption is so deep and the trade-offs are so insidious, like the Genius Act. That was a prime example. It's like, hey, this is actually a really good bill where now instead of needing a bank that pays you 0% for the money you're going to spend in your checking account, you would now get like 2% on a stable coin, which you could take in Bitcoin. You could certainly take your interest or convert it to Bitcoin. I think stablecoins are going to take Bitcoin into a whole new level, by the way. But this Genius Act ended up being co-opted by the banks who were bailed out. Because if you think about it, if you're moving $2 trillion out of the banks into stablecoins, the banks fold. This is the game. If you get rid of all illegals, the dollar collapses. Like there's so many different pieces of this that I think Trump, what he's doing is building a parallel economy. And that parallel economy, he has obviously and clearly endorsed proof of work decentralization being the key. And I find it astounding people that still don't realize this.
Well, and this is where it gets tricky for me, which is the parallel economy and parallel system has to be at a certain level before you pull the plug on the other system,
Yes.
or it fails. And then what's stood up in its place is just a ramped up version of the same controlling evil system that we're trying to get rid of in the first place.
1000%.
So I hold my fire on some of this stuff with the understanding that building this alternative system is really complex, and we're also extremely close, but there's that moment where we transition that of immense danger.
Sure.
And the other thing I really want to implore, and one of my biggest fears with the Bitcoin community in particular, which is number go up is a danger if that is the only priority.
I couldn't agree more.
And I have this argument with a lot of really genius people who've been here for a long time, who I consider like full-blown cypherpunks, who are like, take down the system. But now it's, well, maybe just finding a way to get the number to go up. Like, we don't have to be as concerned about making sure that we uphold why it was a revolution in the first place.
Agreed.
And so for it's important for us, regardless of what government does, right? For me, the reason I love Bitcoin, the reason is it kept me alive if the government and the banks and the system had its way, the goal was to starve me out, period. Like completely and totally starve me out.
Yeah. How many years did you not have a bank account?
Well, more than 4 years. So I was debanked 2 months in August 2020. And I mean, to be honest, I still don't have a bank account. So
You don't need one now.
where are we at 5 years now? Well, I had to build an alternative system. And the cool thing is it's gotten easier. So like, I mean, if I'm doing the number of times I onboard people like Cash App and Venmo now take Bitcoin.
Yep.
I listen, it's a crazy story. I don't have a bank account. So like, I got to send it to you in Bitcoin. I'll walk you through though, how to like turn into it. But it's the greatest onboarding tool ever. And like, I don't have to convince them at that point about cold storage and self-sovereignty.
Right.
Like, oh, here's a little Bitcoin. Try keep a little of it so you could just see what's happening to it. Yeah, you might be surprised. But if they had their way, and if this was a government endorsed and backed system, I wouldn't have survived. I wouldn't have been able to provide for my family. And so we have to maintain that. Yeah. And so at some level, I don't care what the government does. Right? Yeah. I mean, I care, but I care more about making sure that we can continue to operate at the very important base level. And I don't care if that means that temporarily we don't nuke the number as high as it could possibly go by getting the kind of buy-in that we're talking about. Although I think for the next big spending fight, like, why don't we just make them buy 2 million Bitcoin? That'd be good for the number, right? Oh, let's do it.
Yeah. But at the same time, I have this conversation. I'm in spaces all the time with this stuff. And I'm like, guys, I've been sitting here for 3 hours. We've talked about macroeconomic conditions, Japan, all these. We've talked about the asset. The asset only has value because of the network. So you will rarely find me on a X space talking about Bitcoin where I won't tell people to run a node and have a home miner. And I think everyone in the world should have a home miner. They're like $200 now. They're very cheap. Yeah, it's like a lottery ticket, but at the same time, it's also like a freedom pass. Like you are contributing to a network, and then some people, you're not really contributing to you're contributing to the network, period. And you can learn Bitcoin, and you can learn on-chain transactions, and you can learn how to not need a checking account that pays you 0 interest while the bank is raping your money with US treasuries. They're making 5% on your deposits. You're making nothing. That's the bottom line. And that's what stablecoins are going to be. They're making 5% on your money. You're making nothing. And I think this revolution has to come. And I think Bitcoin was the guiding light. But if you notice, this is how narratives work. You don't hear the media talking about the Bitcoin network and what actually creates the efficiency. You don't hear them talking about, they're still saying it's bad for the environment. They're still saying, the only thing you hear is them touting the price, which is fine. Like there are plenty of people who love Bitcoin because it'll make them rich.
Yeah.
Of course. But if you don't focus in on the network, like kind of like it's literally the exact example of co-opting America. In the 1910s, this was probably the greatest place in the world to live. A central bank comes into play, taxes. They give you the story about how it's just going to be 1% temporarily. Don't worry, we're going to back your money with gold. But like 22 years later, we're going to take all your gold. We're going to reduce the amount of gold on it. And then, we're going to remove all the gold from it. It'll be fine. It'll be backed by oil. And it'll be cool. If someone says anything, we'll just bomb them. And it's great. How's that turning out for you, America? And this same thing happening.
We'll call it fractions, right?
Yeah.
You guys hate fractions, but like, don't overthink it. We'll just borrow.
But the S&P 500's up.
Okay, we'll borrow a little bit more. And there is a day, like, arrogance is always a danger.
Always.
And if there's one thing I get frustrated about with my Bitcoin friends, it's that, laws of thermodynamics, there's absolutely no danger that could ever happen. There are dangers. And it does require vigilance, just like everything ever that's been worth keeping. Mm-hmm. And so, right, like anybody who just puts the wall up and says, oh, it's indestructible, laws of thermodynamics, let's do what we want, which gets to a lot of these like new financial instruments that worry me.
Sure.
Right? Like, yeah.
Distractions.
I cannot help but be reminded of, credit default swaps and right. So mortgage-backed securities and some of the financial instruments that we were touted were invincible and only went up. And what I see from Bitcoin treasury companies and other treasury companies worries me. And I think it's really important for us to remain in the fight in other levels, which is when I talk about the dangers of the CBDC, social credit score, digital ID system, and decentralization. It's going to be waged in many different places. One of them is going to be where where do transactions happen? Does it happen with smart contracts like Ethereum, where you could program anything you want into the currencies that are deposited to people?
Which is where the banks are going to do DeFi. Like, let's just be honest. Like, Ethereum's chain is going to thrive from banking DeFi. Centralized central banking DeFi will be done on Ethereum.
I think, I'll be honest. I think Ethereum's Ethereum is the scariest of the options to me.
Yeah.
And
not the scariest, but it's darn close. You and I know the scariest. I don't waste my time on that.
What do you think the scariest is?
Yeah, you know.
No,
well, Bitcoin's the most self-sovereign, right? Like, we know that. Ethereum is, first of all, nobody knows how many Ethereum exist. If it has a foundation and a roadmap, it's centralized. Period, point blank. And that's why Core is losing their function for nodes, because they printed a roadmap and they pushed through op return. So now you're watching what actual decentralization looks like, where knots went from 4% to 14%. It'll be 25% by the end of the year, would be my guess. Nothing else, including Ethereum, doesn't matter if it's Ripple, Ethereum, XRP, Ethereum, Solana. They all have, first of all, there's no nodes being run. The only nodes being run are by corporations, especially Solana. It's like $7 or $8 just to set up a node. Nobody's going to pay that. And you have these central control mechanisms with foundations that help them for the last 13 years, that have helped them prove decentralization to the SEC to not be called unregulated securities. They are unregulated securities because they do have CEOs, board of directors, venture capital investors. So outside of that, there really is just Bitcoin. And you could even give some credit to Monero in this space. But it is Bitcoin. But Bitcoin will never be a DeFi system. So I do believe that Ethereum, and I agree with you, is probably at least close to the scariest, if not the scariest, because of the central control, which is why it's attractive to banks. They will use it. It doesn't even all the competitors in the DeFi space, they all use Ethereum EVM. Right. So it's the clear stablecoin winner. Tron too, He's donated enough money to this administration to be the winner.
Ju-
He is now.
Justin's son's one of my favorite. I can't help it. Like I've known Justin for a bunch of years. He's one of the most ridiculous characters we have in the world. Like
I don't know him.
it's almost beyond belief.
I don't.
It's
What
so
I
over
do
the
know.
top. Like we almost have to laugh.
Well, the thing I like about Tron is they don't claim to be decentralized. Like he's like, it's a centralized token. Like everyone else
And we
lies.
keep it cheap.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Centralization. That is for those of you watching this who don't understand this. In blockchain physics, if something is faster and cheaper than Bitcoin, it means by the laws of physics, it's more centralized. That is what centralization does. It makes things faster and cheaper, and the trade-off is freedom. And governments are no different. Banks are no different. Your local little league is no different. It's the same philosophy. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Ethereum might be first of all, it's the most co-opted chain in the world. I actually don't even believe Vitalik I don't even think Vitalik can change his own underwear. I mean, it's just. I mean, it's like, why are we even focused on anything else? Because I don't know, unregulated securities were allowed to thrive and flourish for 13 years to keep money out of Bitcoin. So
It's kind of fun.
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It's a fun. But no, I don't know why I wasn't processing as much. You know what's funny though, Eric, which is hearing you describe. Listen, I love Solana, right? Like
It's a great platform.
I have come to be very appreciative of like the vision and what like I'm very bullish on Solana, and it's also somewhere I've made the conscious decision to try to impact to the best of my ability, because I think it adds a component. I don't want to dilute what Bitcoin is by trying to make it everything.
Sure.
Right? Which is I think that there's a lot of things that Bitcoin is perfect for, but if you try to do everything on every level, you dilute it, and then you ultimately take away from like the primary purpose. But listening to you describe it right there makes me remember all of the times that I've criticized people for DAOs. Oh, we're a decentralized autonomous organization that has one person who makes all the decisions and only can like choose which votes. Like it's so dumb. Like
Yeah.
right, but it's also part of the problem with our like just the government system in general.
Sure.
Which oh well, you can't do this, but unless you paper it the right. This is the thing that's always drove me crazy.
Yeah.
Well, if you know the right person who can write the magic code on paper, then it's legal. But if you don't have the magic word written down on paper, it's illegal. Like
no, it's an unregistered security.
That's exactly that gets to equal application, right?
Yeah.
Like again, it gets back to that core principle of equal application. So
yeah, and I think that you're like first of all, I'm Bitcoin only. So like I think everyone knows that. I don't mess around with anything else, but I'm also not ignorant to the world. And I understand that other chains will be used by industries. I don't think any of their tokens have any value at all. And that's being proven. But I think that these chains will be used. I think you'll see all of them. I think there will be a multi-chain world, but Bitcoin will be the nuclear reactor, the uranium right in the center that's creating all the value. But they will be used. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that corporations are going to be like, yes, please, or banks like, please totally decentralize and remove all the power we've had for 150 years.
Right.
It's not, Bitcoin shouldn't want to be part of the system. Bitcoin is the parallel economy. Everything else is the Band-Aid on top of the bullet hole for the existing financial system. Bitcoin is the only off-ramp for true decentralization, and it has its problems like everything else. But we've never had a solution like this. Never. Humanity, as we know it, every person living today has no idea what decentralization is. No clue. It doesn't exist anywhere. And I think that you're probably a great walking testimony of this, because you tried to decentralize the government. You literally tried to do that. And guess what? It takes a lot of work. You can't just buy the coin and like, oh, I'm a Bitcoiner. No, you got to run a node. You got to run a miner. You got to support the economy, the ecosystem. You got to educate. If nothing else, you've got to at least pay attention to what a hash rate is and learn how it works. Like learn that, because all that stuff, I think, and just from my closed door conversations with AI guys, which I try to pocket very much so, the real AI guys in this world are all looking to leverage proof of work network for decentralizing AI. And those are the real guys. But within 5 years, like you're saying, the narrative approach is going to be, oh, it costs so much money, and proof of work is so expensive for the environment and such a drain on energy. Why don't you just let us control it? We have this grant from Palantir. It's going to be amazing, dude. We'll totally do this for you guys. No, it takes
Decentralized
work.
too, you guys. We're totally for realsies decentralized and stuff. Like, ignore the fact that we could shut it down and move
Yeah,
it.
or that there's 8 servers.
Right.
Yeah, we're decentralized. We have 8 corporate servers in 8 different nations, but there are servers, but
Oh,
it's decentralized. They're not all in one place. They're not just in San Francisco.
oh, and
We-
we have listen, I know that there's a retail ledger and a wholesale ledger.
Yeah,
Like, but everybody's on an equal playing field. Like, you
Yeah.
just don't understand.
yeah.
Don't overthink it.
We're definitely not funding our operation with your ignorance. It's definitely not happening. We're definitely not doing that. But what we are doing is providing the next Bitcoin. You'll never see another Bitcoin. There's already like 50 of them out there that look like Bitcoin that actually are the exact same. The problem is no one wants to mine a 12-cent coin. And the miners make the network and the nodes make the network. And this is a great way to end it on this, because government needs to be decentralized. We talked about voting. We talked about bills. We talked about, different priorities that our government issues out. Spending, all these things should be on a blockchain somewhere. We actually don't need politicians in the era of AI and decentralization. We should have single issue bills that are being put out there, and they should pop up on your phone with some sort of way to verify who you are. And you can vote on it yourself instead of turning over and centralizing your vote to a congressman who is getting paid by APAC and the tobacco and pornography industries to sway opinion. They are just salesmen. They all get paid to execute a plan, and then they sell you something else. Blockchain by itself, if decentralized, or even if it's centralized but open source, because it's okay. Like, to all the crypto space, it's okay to say you're centralized. Most people actually don't care. Saying you're decentralized is fraud. That is misleading information. It's okay to say that, crypto space, because we are going to need centralized blockchains to put budgets on. And why aren't we voting on time chain, stamping our time chain? There's no voter fraud possible with an immutable blockchain, and government spending same way. And I will wrap up by saying this, Dustin. The American Party is an absolute joke. Our solution to this problem is not another narrative spinner. It's certainly not one labeled the American Party that's run by 3 non-American born native citizens. And we need to start focusing on real solutions like decentralization, utilizing AI and blockchain as a weapon for freedom and not a free service of convenience, the way the internet was weaponized.
I love that. I'll say this. One of the things that's most important to me, which is we're in this really cool spot where things are transitioning, and all of the smartest people I know will all agree that we are living through historic transformative periods in technology and in healthcare and in money and in interpersonal communications and in media. And there's one place, though, that people still reject the idea that we can transform, and it's 2-party politics and the representative system that we've got. And if there's one thing that I hope that people will take in, because the American Party, it's not that I love what the exact American Party is, but I just want people to allow themselves the imagination that we do not have to put up with this nonsense. That we have the ability for us to fix so much of this and to get away from a system that no longer makes any sense as far as like how we apportion and pick representatives to go. There's so much of that could be changed and upgraded, and yet it's the one place that people reject the idea that we could fix it. And so just let yourself believe that like it can get better on the government side, because I believe it can, and it will, if we put the time, energy, and effort, and if God wills it. So, right, like it's funny. In a lot of ways, Bitcoin and like the whole crypto journey, it gave me the optimism when all hope should have been lost, and brought me closer to God instead of pushed me away from it, which is something I see it happen a lot, which is I think it's a whole nother discussion that we'd have. Eric, what pleasure. Thanks for having me, man. Would love to have you one night. So Gary Cardone and I, with Joe Calisor and a bunch of other madmen, we do Bitcoin debates twice a week that we're starting up. I'd love to have you on as one of the debaters with us one night.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Bitcoin is no different than America when it was first founded. It was said, I hand you a constitutional republic if you can keep it. I hand you decentralized money if you can keep it. And I think that that's one of the areas that our network definitely needs to focus on. Dustin, this has been amazing. We went 40 minutes over, and I could probably go another 2. You got to work. I got to work. Neither one of us get paid for media.
I got called. I got to jump on. I didn't mean to check my phone, but
no, you're all good. I knew it was coming.
Like, where are you? I guess it could be all right. We'll be good. Don't stress it. But
no worries.
Can you imagine the pain of being my assistant?
No, I don't want that pain at all. No thanks. Not even if you pay me in Bitcoin.
I hope she gets sainted for the time served. God bless you, Cheney.
Well, Dustin, where can everybody find you? How can they get involved? How can they support you?
I'm mostly just on X. So Dustin Stockton on X. It's pretty much the only, and then I pop around and do a bunch of things. I will warn, like, follow me at your own risk, because like I often, like, I will say things that are only funny to me. People are like, "What are you doing?"
I get the humor. We have similar humor.
So,
well, Dustin,
beware. No refunds.
I want to thank you so much for this. We got to get you back on. I'd love to go on the debates, and I'd love to have you back on here talking as new developments come up, because you and I, first, let me summarize this. We love Trump. We support Trump. We actually understand how difficult it is to get good things through Washington, D.C., and we don't live in a fantasy land where you wave a magic wand and everything changes. It is going to require human effort, is going to require your effort to restore freedom in this country. We both agree that Bitcoin is decentralized. It's great money. We also both agree, because we're not ignorant, that other chains will be used, but those are blockchains. I don't think their tokens have any value. That's my opinion. Whether it does or not, time will tell. I think stablecoins are going to dominate the market. Be careful of them. Their CBDC is backdoor. Other than that, fight for your freedom, love your family, praise the Lord, take every day as a blessing, because it absolutely is. It's such a blessing to be able to express our free opinions on the airwaves in a country and not be put in jail. So until next time, God bless all of you. God bless this country. We'll see you next time on the Rice Report. Have a good day, everybody.